Hey guys, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I'm going to be sharing with you my top favorite places in Salem that I think are definitely worth visiting. I was inspired to film this video because I took a trip to Salem last year in October and I had the best time. Honestly, Salem left such an impact on me and my heart has been set on getting back to New England ever since I left. So I just want anybody who is watching this video and planning a trip to Salem to have the best time just like I did. So yeah, I'm going to share with you about 16 locations and I'm going to list all of the locations down in the description bar along with the addresses so that it's easier for you to write down everything. You might want to grab a notebook because I'm going to include a lot of historical facts and important things to note. I guess with that said, let's just dive right in. I hope you enjoy. So the first location is the famous witch house. This is probably the most photographed building or house in Salem. This was the house of Judge Jonathan Corwin, who was the judge in the Salem trials, and this is the only building still standing with direct ties to the trials. It's important to mention because I know the name can be misleading. No witches lived in this house. And as far as when the house was built, historians are kind of unsure because according to the Corwin family lore, the house was built in 1642, but according to Victorian scholars, the house was built between the 1620s and the 1630s, and Roger Williams, who was the founder of the Rhode Island colony, resided there in the 30s. The second location is the Salem Witch Trials Memorial. This memorial is located in the center or the heart of Salem. It's this memorial with 20 granite benches with the names of the victims inscribed, as well as the dates of when they were executed and how they were executed. There were 19 people who were hanged and there was one person who was pressed to death, which is Giles Corey. It's important to mention that where the memorial is, it is not the location of where the victims were executed. The ones who were hanged were all hanged over by where there is currently now a Walgreens. I'm sure if you look it up on the internet you could find out where that is. And then Giles Corey was pressed to death over by Howard Street. I think it's in the field across from the Howard Street Cemetery. And that brings us into the third location, which is the Burying Point Cemetery. This is located right next to the memorial and it's the second oldest cemetery in the country. It goes back to 1637 and it's really important to understand that no victims are buried here. However, there are a few notable people buried, such as Judge John Hawthorne, who was a judge in the Salem trials, Mary Corey, who was Giles Corey's first wife, and then I believe a passenger from the Mayflower is actually buried there as well. So this kind of has nothing to do with that, but a fun fact that I wanted to share with you. So Judge John Hawthorne was Nathaniel Hawthorne's great-grandfather. Nathaniel Hawthorne wanted to distance himself from his great-grandfather because he was disgusted in the actions that he did, and so Nathaniel Hawthorne added a W to his last name so that he could, like I said, kind of distance himself. I thought that was very interesting to learn. So next on my list is the House of Seven Gables. This house was built in 1668 by Captain John Turner, and this house inspired Nathaniel Hawthorne's novel, The House of Seven Gables. It's just a gorgeous black house. If you're going to Salem and you want to see all the black houses, this has to be on your list because it's gorgeous. However, you have to pay to get up close to it and to see the front of it. But if you don't want to pay, there is a side street where you can see the house. I haven't read the book, but I actually have it right here and I plan to read it this fall. So my next location is the John Ward House. This house was built in 1684 by John Ward, I believe. Again, no direct ties, no ties at all to the Salem witch trials. It's just another gorgeous black house and is a National Historic Landmark. So the next location is the Merchant or the Joshua Ward House. Now don't get this confused with the John Ward House because they are two separate locations, but the Merchant is currently a hotel. However, it wasn't always a hotel. It used to be a mansion, and then I think it was like a realtor office, and then it was a hotel, and then it was another thing, and like it's been a lot of different things, but it's currently a hotel, but it has quite a history. So this building is built right where Sheriff George Corwin had his house slash jail in the 1600s, and he was a terrible, gruesome man. He was the sheriff during the time of the Salem witch trials and he was just so awful. He was nicknamed the Strangler. He was very mean. He was a nasty man, and there are supposedly stories of hauntings and paranormal phenomena. So that brings us to our next location, Hawthorne Hotel, which is another great hotel worth checking out if you want some possible ghostly action. So the construction of this building began in 1924 and the hotel opened in 1925, I believe in July. And what's so cool about this hotel is where it lies is where Bridget Bishop's apple orchard once stood, and she was the first victim executed in the Salem witch trials. Now, I didn't stay at the Hawthorne Hotel when I was in Salem, and I didn't stay in the Merchant either, but I have heard some crazy stories on the tour and online, and I could be wrong on this, but supposedly room 621 and 325 are the rooms with the most activity. Next, I briefly just want to touch on Marblehead. If you are looking to go to a beach, or you want to see a lighthouse, or you just want to get down by the water, Marblehead is a great location. My husband and I went there just briefly to kill some time while we waited for our ghost tour, and I can't remember exactly which part of Marblehead we went to, but I'll have it down below in case you were interested. Okay, so next I just have two statues that I want to talk about, and then we'll get into the Hocus Pocus locations. So the first statue is the Roger Conant statue. Roger Conant was the founder of Salem, and this statue is a highly photographed statue, so that's the only reason I wanted to include this, in case you're interested in checking it out for yourself. It's located pretty close to the John Ward House, and then it's also right next to the Salem Witch Museum. The second statue I want to talk about is the Bewitched statue of Elizabeth Montgomery. It's a pretty iconic statue. It's located on Essex Street, and it's just Elizabeth Montgomery sitting on a crescent moon, and it's just cool to see, especially if you've ever seen the movie. Okay, so let's go over a few Hocus Pocus locations. So the first Hocus Pocus location is the Ropes Mansion. So the Ropes Mansion is an 18th century Georgian colonial mansion with beautiful gardens in the back, and this was the exterior filming location for Allison's house in Hocus Pocus. It's actually a few houses down from the witch house, so if you're standing facing the witch house, just turn left immediately, walk down a few houses, and you will come across this huge white mansion, which is the Ropes Mansion. So the second Hocus Pocus location is Max Dennison's house. This is an iconic house, but it is important to remember that this is a private residence. Someone actually lives there, so you have to be respectful. Don't look in the windows, don't get up too close to the house, probably shouldn't go up on the porch. I'm sure they're used to people stopping and taking pictures all the time, but it's just important to be courteous and respectful because, like I said, someone lives there. It's not just the Max Dennison house. So the third and final Hocus Pocus location is the Old Town Hall. This is located downtown. It's pretty easy to find. I think you can go inside, but I believe you have to pay. I'm not sure though. This is where they filmed the dance that the parents went to, where the Sanderson sisters did their song and dance. So let's move on to stores, and then I'm actually going to talk about one more bonus place at the very end because I just remembered to talk about it. The first store is called House Witch. This store is so cute. I loved it so much. It's this big, bright, open store with white walls, wooden floors, lots of plants, lots of natural light. It's very airy and spacey, and she sells the cutest stuff. She sells crystals, jewelry, room accessories, books, journals, candles. In fact, I actually bought a candle. So I bought this candle. It's called The Witches. The next store I went to was called Why Not's Wands. So this was a wand store, and this reminded me of Ollivanders from Harry Potter. It just looked so similar inside, and they had like Harry Potter, well, it wasn't Harry Potter music, but it was twinkly music. It was so cool inside. They just sold a bunch of wooden wands, and if I remember correctly, they were kind of expensive, but if that's your kind of thing, you might totally love that. And even if you don't want to buy a wand, it's still cool to pop in there and check it out because it looks so cool. So the next location is Wicked Good Books. This is a bookstore located in the Witch Village, and they just had a nice selection of books if you're looking to buy a book while you're in Salem. I actually stopped in there because it does have a history of poltergeist activity, and it's kind of on the Salem haunted list, and I wanted to visit as many of those places as possible. It's a great bookstore, definitely worth checking out. The last store I want to talk about is the Marble Fawn. She has souvenirs, she has a lot of books. I would say it's more of a bookstore, and then she had this case of books that were over 100 years old and in amazing condition, and I saw a book in there that I wanted to look at, and I fell in love with it, and I actually ended up buying it. So this was the book that I bought. So that is it for stores. I have one more location I want to talk about, and that is called Hammond Castle. So Hammond Castle is an old castle that was built in 1926. I believe it was between 1926 and 1929 by an eccentric inventor named John Hayes, and I believe he built it for his wife. It's a museum now, and I believe you have to pay to go in, but you can walk the grounds for free. It's about 20 to 30 minutes north of Salem, so if you have your own vehicle, it's definitely worth checking out. There's a gorgeous view of the Atlantic Ocean. It's like an arched pillarway. I'll put a picture in. It's so pretty, and I just think that this is a hidden New England gem that a lot of people don't know about, and it's definitely worth checking out. So that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions at all or any comments, if you have any other places that you want to include in this list, leave them down below in the comments so I can read them, so anyone else can read them. And honestly, you guys, there were so many stores and so many places to check out in Salem that we just didn't have enough time, and I wouldn't be able to include them all in this video. This video would get way too long. I loved Salem so much. I know Salem gets a lot of criticism for over commercializing the witchy aspect. A lot of people say it's really touristy and cheesy, but I felt like it wasn't overdone. Maybe that's just because I was there at the beginning of October. I'm sure as the month progresses, the haunted happenings intensifies, and of course the crowds intensify as well as the traffic. But I had an amazing time visiting Salem. I want to go back so bad, and I hope that this video was helpful for any of you, and I hope that if you go to Salem this fall or next summer or whenever, that you have an amazing time. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new around here, maybe hit the subscribe button to see more videos from me. I'm actually thinking of doing a Salem ghost stories video where I just share like 3 ghost stories that I heard while I was in Salem. They're really good stories. Anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video, which will be sometime in the near future. Bye!